How did I go from mocking his proposal to being served divorce papers at my own office? What happens when the man you thought would always chase you decides he's done and brings all the receipts? Can a not romantic enough proposal really destroy a marriage, or was it always about something deeper? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth at Marcello's Italian restaurant as Owen reached into his jacket pocket. I knew what was coming. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 4, and the hints had been getting less subtle lately. But when he pulled out that simple black velvet box, my heart sank instead of soared. "Lysandra," Owen said, his voice trembling slightly as he got down on one knee beside our corner table. "You're the love of my life. Will you renew our vows with me?" I stared at the modest diamond ring, probably a carat, maybe less, and felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Around us, other diners had started to notice, phones coming out to record what they thought would be a magical moment. My sister Carla was there with her husband David, along with Owen's mother Ruth and our 8-year-old daughter Amelia. "Owen, get up," I whispered harshly, but he stayed there, hope shining in his brown eyes. "I know I'm not the most romantic guy," he continued, oblivious to my mortification, "but I love you more than anything. I want to show you how much our marriage means to me." The ring was so ordinary, so predictable. Where was the flash mob? The elaborate setup? The photographer capturing every angle? I'd seen proposals on social media with orchestras, with drones, with celebrity appearances. This was just dinner and a ring. "This is it," I heard myself say, louder than I intended. "This is your big romantic gesture." Owen's face fell. Around us, the restaurant had gone quiet. I could feel everyone staring, waiting for my answer, but all I could think about was how disappointed I felt, how this moment would look in photos, how my friends would react when I told them. "Lysandra, please," Owen whispered. You thought what? That I'd be impressed by the same restaurant we come to every anniversary, by a ring you probably bought at the mall?" The words came out before I could stop them. "Owen, I love you, but this is it's not what I dreamed of." I saw his mother, Ruth's face go pale. Amelia looked confused, her big eyes darting between us. Carla was trying not to laugh behind her hand, while David looked uncomfortable. "Maybe we could talk about this at home," Owen suggested quietly, still on one knee, but looking like he wanted to disappear. "There's nothing to talk about. This whole thing is just embarrassing." I stood up, grabbing my purse. "I'm sorry, everyone. Owen, when you're ready to put some real effort into this relationship, let me know." I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, but I could feel the stares burning into my back. Behind me, I heard Amelia asking why Mommy was upset, and Ruth's sharp intake of breath. At home later that night, Owen sat on our bed holding that ring box. He hadn't said a word during the drive home, hadn't tried to defend himself or argue. He just looked broken. "I thought you'd like it," he said finally. "I saved for 6 months." "6 months for that?" I scoffed, pulling off my earrings. "Owen, we make decent money. I'm a supervisor at the call center. You're an accountant. We could afford something impressive if you actually tried." "It's not about the money, Lysandra. It's about us. No, it's about effort. It's about showing me that I matter enough for you to plan something special, something memorable." I turned to face him. "Do you know what Sarah from work told me about her husband's proposal? He rented out an entire rooftop, had a string quartet, professional photographer. That's romance." Owen closed the ring box with a soft click. "I'm not Sarah's husband." "No, you're not." The words hung in the air between us, heavier than I'd intended. He stood up slowly, putting the box in his dresser drawer. "I guess I should have known better." "Yes, you should have." I felt a small stab of guilt at his defeated expression, but pushed it down. Look, I'm not trying to be mean. I just expected more from you. From us. Owen nodded, but he wasn't really looking at me anymore. I understand. But I could tell he didn't. Men never understood that women needed to feel special, needed grand gestures to show their friends and family. They thought love was enough, but love without effort was just settling. Later, after Owen had fallen asleep, I found myself texting Marco, the trainer from my gym. We'd been chatting casually for a few weeks. Nothing serious, just friendly conversation. You won't believe what happened tonight, I typed. Owen proposed. At the same restaurant we always go to. With the most boring ring ever. I said no. The response came back quickly. His loss. You deserve someone who knows your worth. I smiled at my phone screen, feeling validated for the first time all evening. At least someone understood that I deserved better than ordinary. The next morning at work, I couldn't wait to tell my story. The call center was always buzzing with gossip, and I knew my coworkers would understand why I'd turned down Owen's lackluster proposal. "Girl, you did the right thing," said Jessica from the cubicle next to mine as we grabbed coffee before our shift. "If a man can't put effort into proposing, what's he going to do for the rest of your marriage?" Exactly. I felt relieved that someone got it. I mean, we've been together for years. He knows I love romance, I love grand gestures, and he gives me dinner at Marcello's. That's just lazy, agreed Patricia from HR. My ex-husband proposed at a baseball game. On the Jumbotron. Now that's memorable. I spent my lunch break telling the story to anyone who would listen. Each time, I embellished it a little more. The ring got smaller, Owen's speech got more awkward, the restaurant got more ordinary. By the end of the day, I'd painted myself as the victim of a man who simply didn't care enough to try. "You know what you need?" Marco said when I ran into him at the gym after work. "You need someone who appreciates you." Marco was everything Owen wasn't. Tall, muscular, confident. He had that easy smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he talked to you, he gave you his full attention, not like Owen, who was always distracted by work or Amelia or his mother. "Owen's a good guy," I said, though the words felt automatic. "He's just practical." "Practical is boring." Marco handed me a towel as I finished my workout. "A woman like you deserves passion, excitement." I felt my cheeks flush. It had been a long time since a man had looked at me the way Marco was looking at me now. Owen used to look at me like that, back when we were dating, but marriage and routine had dulled that spark. "Maybe," I said, trying to sound casual, "but I'm married with a daughter. That's my reality." "Reality doesn't have to be boring," Marco replied. "Want to grab a smoothie? Just as friends, of course." I knew I should say no. I knew that getting smoothies with an attractive man who was clearly interested in me was crossing a line. But I was still angry about last night, still hurt that Owen had put so little thought into something so important. "Sure," I heard myself say, "just as friends." The smoothie bar was crowded, but Marco found us a quiet corner table. He asked about my work, my interests, my dreams. When was the last time Owen had asked about my dreams? I always wanted to travel, I found myself confessing. See Paris, Rome, all those romantic cities. But Owen's so practical about money. He's always talking about Amelia's college fund and retirement savings. "Those things matter," Marco said, "but so does living. So does feeling alive." When he said that, looking directly into my eyes, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Desired, appreciated, seen. "I should get home," I said, glancing at my phone. "Amelia will be wondering where I am." "Of course, but Lysandra..." He reached across the table and touched my hand briefly. "If you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here. You deserve someone who listens." On the drive home, I felt guilty and exhilarated at the same time. Nothing had happened, we'd just talked. But the way Marco looked at me, the way he hung on my every word, made me feel like a woman instead of just a wife and mother. Owen was in the kitchen making dinner when I got home, still wearing his work clothes. He looked up when I entered, and I saw hope flicker in his eyes. "How was your day?" he asked carefully. "Fine." I hung up my purse and avoided his gaze. "Where's Amelia?" "Upstairs doing homework. Lysandra, about last night." "I don't want to talk about it, Owen." "But we need to. I've been thinking about what you said, and maybe we could—" "What?" "Go back to the restaurant and try again. It's too late for that." I opened the refrigerator, not really looking for anything, just needing something to do with my hands. I could plan something else, something bigger, more romantic. The eagerness in his voice made me feel worse somehow, like a dog begging for scraps. "It shouldn't be something I have to ask for, Owen. Romance should be natural, spontaneous." "I'm not a spontaneous person, you know that, but I can learn, I can try." "Forget it." I slammed the refrigerator door harder than necessary. "The moment's gone. You can't manufacture romance after the fact." Owen's shoulders sagged. "So that's it? 6 years together and it's over because of one bad proposal." "It's not about one proposal. It's about what it represents. It's about effort, Owen. It's about making me feel special." "You are special. You're the most important person in my life." "Then why don't I feel like it?" He didn't have an answer for that. Later that evening, after Amelia had gone to bed, I found myself scrolling through social media, looking at other couples' engagement photos, their romantic getaways, their anniversary celebrations. Everyone else seemed to be living these exciting, passionate lives while I was stuck in suburban mediocrity. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. "Hope you made it home safely. Thanks for a great conversation today." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Thank you for listening. It meant a lot." "Anytime. Sweet dreams, Lysandra." I deleted the conversation before going to bed, but I couldn't delete the way his attention had made me feel. For the first time in years, someone had made me feel interesting, desirable, worth pursuing. Owen was already asleep when I slipped into bed beside him. He looked peaceful, younger somehow without the worried expression he'd been wearing lately. Part of me wanted to wake him up, to try to explain how I was feeling, to bridge the growing gap between us. But then I remembered the disappointment of last night, the boring predictability of our life together, the way Marco had looked at me like I was something precious. I turned away from my husband and closed my eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. 2 weeks later, we were all gathered at Ruth's house for her 61st birthday dinner. The tension between Owen and me had only gotten worse since the proposal incident, and I could feel everyone watching us, waiting to see if we'd work things out. "So, Lysandra," Ruth said as she served the pot roast, her voice carefully neutral, "Owen mentioned you two are working through some things." I felt my jaw tighten. Of course Owen had run to his mother. He always did when things got difficult between us. "We're fine, Ruth. Just a small disagreement." "About the proposal," Carla added helpfully, earning a sharp look from her husband David. "I still can't believe you turned him down." "I didn't turn him down exactly," I said, feeling defensive. "I just thought he could put more effort into it." "More effort?" Ruth's eyebrows rose. "He saved for 6 months for that ring." "It's not about the money." "Then what is it about?" Owen asked quietly. He'd been mostly silent since we'd arrived, playing with Amelia and helping his mother in the kitchen. All eyes turned to me. I felt trapped, judged by people who didn't understand what it was like to feel taken for granted, to feel like your husband saw you as a sure thing, rather than someone worth pursuing. "It's about passion," I said finally. "It's about making an effort to be romantic, to make me feel special." Other husbands plan elaborate proposals, surprise their wives with trips, with flowers, with grand gestures. When's the last time you surprised me with anything, Owen? "I brought you coffee in bed last Tuesday," he said, looking confused. Carla snorted with laughter. "Coffee in bed? Oh, Owen, honey, that's not romance. That's just being nice." I shot her a grateful look. Finally, someone who understood. I work hard, Owen said, his voice getting defensive. I provide for this family. I help with Amelia. I try to be a good husband. Being good isn't the same as being romantic, I interrupted. It's not the same as making me feel desired. So what? I'm supposed to serenade you every night? Hire a mariachi band for breakfast? You're being ridiculous. Am I? Because I honestly don't know what you want from me anymore. My phone buzzed with a text, and I glanced down to see Marco's name. Thinking of you. Hope you're having a good evening. I felt a little thrill at his message, at the knowledge that someone was thinking about me, wanting to connect with me. I quickly typed back, stuck at a boring family dinner. Wish I was somewhere more exciting. Everything okay? David asked, noticing me on my phone. Just work, I lied, putting the phone face down on the table. But it buzzed again almost immediately. Then again. I found myself checking it repeatedly throughout dinner, smiling at Marco's messages about his evening, his workout plans for tomorrow, his thoughts about a movie he'd just watched. Lysandra, Ruth said sharply, could you please put your phone away? We're trying to have a family dinner. Sorry, it's just work, right? Owen said, but there was something in his tone that made me look up. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Yes, work, I said firmly. Some of us have demanding jobs that don't stop at 5 o'clock. I have a demanding job too, Owen replied, but I managed to turn off my phone during family time. Well, aren't you just perfect? I snapped, immediately regretting the sarcasm when I saw Amelia's face fall. I'm not perfect, Owen said quietly. But I'm trying. I'm here. I'm present. I'm engaged with this family. Can you say the same? The table went silent. Even Carla, who usually had my back, looked uncomfortable. Ruth was staring at her plate, and David was cutting his meat with unnecessary precision. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm saying that for the past 2 weeks, you've been distant, distracted, and dismissive. You rejected my proposal, fine. But you won't even talk to me about how to fix things. Maybe because I don't think they can be fixed, I said, the words coming out harsher than I intended. The silence that followed was deafening. Amelia's eyes filled with tears, and Ruth's face went white. Mommy? Amelia's voice was small, scared. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? No, sweetheart, Owen said quickly, reaching over to squeeze her hand. Mommy and I are just having a disagreement. A big disagreement, I muttered, then caught myself when I saw the devastation on my daughter's face. My phone buzzed again. Marco had sent a photo of himself at some trendy bar downtown, looking handsome and carefree. Wish you were here, the caption read. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, being at that bar with Marco, laughing and flirting, feeling young and desirable again instead of trapped in this suffocating suburban life. I need some air, I announced, standing abruptly. Lysandra, Owen started. I'll be back in a few minutes. I stepped out onto Ruth's back porch and immediately called Marco. He answered on the second ring. Hey, beautiful, escape the boring dinner party? Something like that. I could hear music and laughter in the background. Sounds like you're having more fun than I am. You could be here in 20 minutes, he said, and I could hear the invitation in his voice. For a wild moment I considered it, just leaving, driving to wherever Marco was, spending the evening feeling appreciated instead of criticized. I can't, I said finally. I have responsibilities. Responsibilities are overrated. Life's short, Lysandra. You should do what makes you happy. When I hung up and went back inside, Owen was clearing the table while Ruth comforted a still upset Amelia. Carla and David were getting ready to leave, and the whole evening felt ruined. Ready to go? Owen asked when he saw me. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As we gathered our things, Ruth pulled me aside. I don't know what's going on with you, she said quietly, but that man in there loves you more than life itself. Don't throw that away for something that looks shinier. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Her eyes were sad but firm. I raised a good man, Lysandra. Don't make him pay for whatever's missing in your life. On the drive home, Owen and I didn't speak. Amelia fell asleep in her car seat, and the silence stretched between us like a canyon. At home, after we'd put Amelia to bed, Owen finally broke. I don't know how to fix this, he said, standing in our bedroom doorway. I don't know what you want from me. I want to feel alive again, I said without thinking. I want passion, excitement, romance. I want to feel like a woman, not just a wife and mother. And I can't give you that. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. He was a good man, a devoted father, a faithful husband, but he was also predictable, safe, ordinary. And increasingly, ordinary wasn't enough. I don't think you can, I said softly. Something died in Owen's eyes at those words. He nodded slowly, then quietly left the room. I heard him making up the couch downstairs, and I knew we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But instead of feeling sad, I felt relieved, like I'd finally been honest about what I needed. My phone buzzed one more time before I went to sleep. Marco again. Sweet dreams. Tomorrow's a new day. I smiled and typed back, yes, it is. But I didn't delete the conversation this time. Over the next month, my lunches with Marco became a regular thing. What started as innocent smoothies turned into actual meals at restaurants across town, places where I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. Marco was everything Owen wasn't, spontaneous, passionate, focused entirely on me when we were together. You're glowing, he said one afternoon, as we shared dessert at a little cafe downtown. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. I felt myself blush. I had been taking more care with my appearance lately, buying new clothes, getting my hair done, hitting the gym more regularly. It felt good to have someone notice. It's just nice to have something to look forward to, I admitted. These lunches, these conversations, this connection. I met his eyes across the table. I haven't felt this way in a long time. Marco reached across and took my hand. You deserve to feel this way all the time. His touch sent electricity up my arm. When was the last time Owen's touch had affected me like that? I should go, I said, but I didn't pull my hand away. I told work I'd be back by 2. Tell them you had a client emergency. Stay a little longer. So I did. I called in and lied to my supervisor, something I'd never done before. But sitting there with Marco, feeling desired and interesting, it seemed like a small transgression. At home that evening, Owen was helping Amelia with her math homework at the kitchen table. He looked up when I walked in, and I saw him notice my new blouse, my freshly styled hair. You look nice, he said carefully. Special occasion? Just felt like dressing up for work. The lie came easily now. Mommy, you smell pretty, Amelia said, looking up from her worksheet, like flowers. It was Marco's cologne, lingering on my clothes from when he'd hugged me goodbye. Thank you, sweetheart. Owen's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't say anything. He'd been walking on eggshells around me since the dinner at Ruth's, trying to be more attentive, more romantic. Last week he'd brought me flowers, grocery store daisies that made me think of Marco's comment about settling for ordinary. How was your day? Owen asked as I poured myself a glass of wine. Busy, lots of client meetings. Another lie. But what was the alternative? Tell him I'd spent 2 hours flirting with another man. On a Tuesday. Client emergencies don't follow a schedule, Owen. He nodded, but something in his expression made me uncomfortable, like he was filing away information. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Marco. Can't stop thinking about this afternoon. You're incredible. I smiled and was about to respond when Owen appeared in the bathroom doorway. Who's texting so late? Carla, I said quickly, turning my phone face down. Sister drama, you know how it is. But Owen's reflection in the bathroom mirror showed he wasn't buying it. Carla's been texting you a lot lately. We've gotten closer recently. Is that a problem? No, it's just different. You used to tell me when she was having issues. I turned to face him. Maybe I don't tell you everything anymore because you don't really listen. I listen. No, Owen, you hear. There's a difference. I pushed past him toward the bedroom. When's the last time you asked about my dreams, my goals, what makes me happy? I ask how your day was every single day. That's not the same thing. Owen sat heavily on the bed. Then tell me now, what makes you happy, Lysandra? The question caught me off guard. What did make me happy? The attention Marco gave me, the way he made me feel special, the excitement of our secret meetings. But I couldn't say that. I don't know, I said finally. That's the problem. Over the next few weeks, I became careless. I started leaving work early to meet Marco at the gym, telling Owen I was shopping or running errands. I bought new lingerie, telling myself it was for my own confidence, but knowing Marco would appreciate it if things ever went that far. And increasingly, it felt like they would. The tension between us was building, the casual touches becoming more frequent, the conversations more intimate. Marco told me about his dreams of opening his own fitness studio, his plans to travel, his thoughts about settling down with the right woman. What about you? He asked one afternoon as we sat in his car after the gym. What do you dream about? Honestly, I dream about feeling alive again, about passion, adventure, spontaneity. You could have all that, he said, his hand resting on my thigh. You just have to be brave enough to take it. When he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away. It was just a soft, brief kiss, but it felt like crossing a bridge I couldn't uncross. When we broke apart, I was trembling. Marco. I know, he said softly. You're married, but Lysandra, life is short. Don't you deserve to be happy? That night, Owen was waiting up for me when I got home. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a serious expression. We need to talk, he said. My heart started pounding. Did he know? Had someone seen me with Marco? About what? About us, about this marriage. Owen gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit. I sat, trying to keep my expression neutral. I've been doing some thinking, Owen continued. About what you said, about passion and romance and feeling alive. And you're right. I haven't been the husband you need. Relief flooded through me. He didn't know about Marco. Owen, let me finish. I want to try harder. I want to be the man you fell in love with. He reached across the table and took my hand. I've planned something for this weekend. A surprise. Just you and me. My mom will watch Amelia. The sincerity in his voice made me feel sick with guilt. Here was my husband, trying to save our marriage, while I was falling for another man. What kind of surprise? The romantic kind. The kind you've been wanting. He squeezed my hand. I love you, Lysandra. I know I don't always show it the right way, but I do. More than anything. Looking into his earnest brown eyes, I felt a moment of clarity. This was my husband, the father of my child, the man who'd been faithful and devoted for 6 years. What was I doing? I love you too, I heard myself say. But even as I said it, my phone was buzzing in my purse with another message from Marco. And despite my guilt, despite Owen's heartfelt words, I felt that familiar thrill of anticipation. Maybe Owen was trying to change, but was it too little, too late? And more importantly, did I even want him to succeed? Owen's surprise weekend was everything I'd claimed I wanted. He'd booked us a suite at a luxury resort 2 hours away, complete with couples spa treatments, candlelit dinners, and a private balcony overlooking the ocean. He'd clearly spent a fortune and put real thought into every detail, but all I could think about was Marco. This is beautiful, I said as we stood on the balcony, watching the sunset, Owen's arms around me from behind. I wanted to show you how much you mean to me, he murmured against my hair. I know I've been taking you for granted. I leaned back against his chest, trying to feel something, anything, that resembled the excitement Marco stirred in me. Owen was being everything I'd asked for: attentive, romantic, passionate. So why did it feel like going through the motions? "Thank you for doing this," I said, and I meant it. The effort was real, the expense significant. But the spark I felt with Marco was absent, replaced by a kind of fond affection that felt more like friendship than romance. That night, as Owen slept beside me in the king-size bed, I found myself scrolling through Marco's social media posts. Pictures of him at the beach, at parties, living the kind of spontaneous, exciting life I craved. He'd posted a photo earlier that evening with the caption, "Missing someone special tonight." I knew it was about me, and the knowledge sent a thrill through me that Owen's elaborate romantic weekend couldn't match. When we returned home Sunday evening, I felt more conflicted than ever. Owen was clearly proud of himself, convinced he'd turned things around between us, and I let him believe it, because what else could I do? "Daddy, did you have fun?" Amelia asked, as Owen carried our bags upstairs. "We had a wonderful time," Owen said, smiling at me over her head. "Sometimes mommies and daddies need special time together." Ruth, who'd been watching Amelia, looked relieved to see us holding hands and acting affectionate. "I'm so glad you two worked things out." But we hadn't worked anything out. If anything, the weekend had shown me how far apart Owen and I had grown. He was trying to be someone he wasn't, and I was pretending to be satisfied with someone I'd outgrown. The next day at work, I couldn't concentrate. Marco had texted me that morning, asking how my weekend went, and I'd been staring at the message for hours, unsure how to respond. Finally, I typed, "It was nice, but I miss talking to you." His response was immediate. "I missed you too. Can we meet today?" I knew I should say no. I knew that seeing Marco after Owen's romantic gesture was a betrayal of everything my husband was trying to rebuild. But I also knew that if I didn't see him, I'd go crazy thinking about what might have been. "Lunch?" I typed back. "I'll pick you up at noon." When Marco pulled up outside my office building, I felt that familiar flutter of excitement. He looked gorgeous as always, his hair perfectly styled, his smile bright enough to light up the grey afternoon. "There she is," he said as I got into his car. "I was starting to think you were avoiding me." "Never," I said, and realized I meant it. "I just had some family stuff to deal with." "The romantic weekend your husband planned?" I'd mentioned Owen's surprise in passing the week before, and I was touched that Marco remembered. "How did you know?" "Lucky guess. Did it work? Are you madly in love with him again?" The question was asked lightly, but I could hear the real concern underneath it. Marco was worried he was losing me to my husband's newfound romantic efforts. "It was sweet," I said carefully. "He really tried. But trying isn't the same as being. He was playing a role. Being who he thought I wanted him to be. It didn't feel authentic." Marco reached over and took my hand. "You know what feels authentic? This. Us. The way we connect." He was right. With Marco, I didn't have to ask for romance or excitement. It was just there, natural and effortless. With Owen, everything felt forced now, like he was following a script for how to be a good husband. "I know," I whispered. "So what are we going to do about it?" The question hung in the air between us as we drove to a small bistro on the other side of town. What were we going to do? I was married with a child, but increasingly that felt like a trap rather than a blessing. Over lunch, Marco painted a picture of what life could be like if I was brave enough to leave Owen. We could travel together, maybe move to a bigger city where I could find a more exciting job. Amelia could visit on weekends and holidays. Plenty of divorced couples made it work. "You're talking about blowing up my entire life," I said, but without the conviction I should have felt. "I'm talking about starting over, about choosing happiness over security." "What about Amelia? What about Owen? He's a good man, Marco. He doesn't deserve this." And you don't deserve to spend the rest of your life settling for good enough. Marco leaned across the table, his eyes intense. Lysandra, I'm falling in love with you. Real love, not the comfortable, familiar kind. The kind that sets you on fire. My heart was racing. No one had ever said anything like that to me, with such passion and certainty. Owen had told me he loved me countless times, but it always felt safe, expected. This felt dangerous and thrilling, and absolutely intoxicating. I'm falling in love with you too, I admitted, and saying it out loud made it feel real and terrifying and inevitable. Marco smiled and squeezed my hand. Then we'll figure out the rest together. That afternoon, I went back to work in a daze. I'd crossed another line, and there was no going back. I was in love with Marco, and he was in love with me, and suddenly my marriage felt like an obstacle to overcome rather than a commitment to honor. When I got home that evening, Owen was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to himself. He looked up when I walked in, his face bright with the kind of contentment I hadn't seen in months. "Hey, beautiful, how was your day?" The endearment, which he'd been using more often since our weekend away, made me flinch. It felt false coming from him, especially after Marco had called me beautiful with such genuine appreciation. "Fine," I said, hanging up my purse. "Busy. I was thinking we could plan another getaway soon, maybe somewhere tropical this time." Owen was trying so hard, and it was breaking my heart even as it annoyed me. He thought he'd solved our problems with one romantic weekend, thought he could win me back with grand gestures and expensive trips. But he was missing the fundamental issue. I didn't want him to try to be someone else. I wanted to be with someone else entirely. "Maybe," I said noncommittally. That night, as Owen slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how I'd gotten here. 6 months ago, I'd been a faithful wife and devoted mother. Now, I was planning to leave my husband for a man I'd known for 2 months. But when I thought about Marco, about the way he made me feel alive and desired and interesting, it all seemed worth it. Life was short, just like he said. Didn't I deserve to be happy? My phone buzzed with a text. "Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I smiled in the darkness and typed back, "Me too. Love you." It was the first time I'd written those words to someone other than Owen, and they felt like both a betrayal and a liberation. Tomorrow, I decided, I would tell Marco I was ready to take the next step. Whatever that meant, wherever it led, I was done living a life that felt too small for who I was becoming. Owen stirred beside me, reaching out in his sleep to pull me closer. For a moment, I let him, remembering all the nights we'd fallen asleep just like this, all the mornings we'd woken up together, all the dreams we'd shared about our future. But then I thought about Marco's kiss, about his promises of adventure and passion, about the life we could build together. And I gently extracted myself from Owen's embrace, turning away from my husband and toward the future I was determined to claim. 3 weeks later, everything came crashing down. I was at my desk, daydreaming about the previous evening with Marco, when my supervisor approached with a serious expression. "Lysandra, there's someone here to see you. Conference room B." My stomach dropped when I saw the man in the expensive suit waiting for me, a manila envelope in his hands. "Lysandra Gresham?" "Yes?" "You've been served." The envelope contained divorce papers, custody documents, and a restraining order requiring me to stay away from our family home. My hands shook as I read Owen's petition, which outlined in clinical detail my extramarital relationship and abandonment of marital duties. But it was the evidence that made me feel sick. Photos of me and Marco at restaurants, phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts, credit card statements from my secret lunches, even testimony from co-workers who'd noticed my changed behavior. Owen had been building a case against me for weeks. "Mrs. Gresham." The process server was waiting for my signature. "I need you to acknowledge receipt." I signed the papers with a numb hand, aware that half my office was watching through the conference room windows. By the time I returned to my desk, the whispers had already started. My phone rang immediately. Owen. How could you? I demanded as soon as I answered. How could I? His voice was calm, controlled, nothing like the desperate man who'd been trying to win me back just weeks ago. Lysandra, I hired a private investigator. I have photos of you kissing him, recordings of you lying to me, evidence of you using our joint credit cards to finance your affair. You had me followed. I had my wife investigated when she started acting like a stranger, when she started coming home smelling like another man's cologne, when she started lying about working late and client meetings. I thought about all those times I'd been careless, all the lies I'd told, all the moments I'd thought I was being clever. Owen had been watching, documenting, preparing. What about Amelia? I asked, my voice breaking. What about her? You think I'm going to let her watch her mother destroy our family? She's staying with me, Lysandra, where she's safe and stable and loved. I love her too. You love yourself more. You've made that very clear. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone in shock. This wasn't the Owen I knew, the gentle, accommodating man who'd spent our entire marriage trying to make me happy. This was someone harder, more decisive, someone who'd finally stopped chasing and started protecting himself. I called Marco immediately, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Then I tried Carla, who answered on the first ring. Oh my God, Lysandra, what have you done? You knew? Owen called David this morning. He's been gathering evidence for weeks. There are photos, Lysandra. Photos of you with that trainer guy. His name is Marco. I don't care what his name is. You cheated on your husband and got caught. What did you think was going to happen? I thought Owen would fight for me, try to work things out. Carla's laugh was bitter. He did try. He planned that romantic weekend. He brought you flowers. He did everything you said you wanted, and you kept sneaking around behind his back. You encouraged me. You said I deserved better. I said you deserved to be happy, not that you should blow up your marriage for some gym rat. I hung up on her and tried Marco again. This time he answered, but he sounded distant, distracted. Marco, thank God. Owen's divorcing me. He has evidence, photos. Yeah, I heard. You heard? From who? Lysandra, this is getting complicated. Maybe we should take a break, let things cool down. My blood went cold. A break? Marco, I'm leaving my husband for you. We talked about this. We talked about a lot of things. But I didn't know your husband was going to go nuclear. I can't afford to get dragged into a messy divorce. But you said you loved me. I do care about you, but I'm not ready for all this drama. The custody battle, the legal stuff, the angry ex-husband. It's not what I signed up for. I felt like I was falling off a cliff. So that's it. You're just abandoning me. I'm not abandoning you, I'm just stepping back. Maybe once everything settles down, we can revisit things. But I could hear it in his voice. He was done. The exciting affair had become a messy reality, and Marco wanted no part of it. After he hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. In the span of one day, I'd lost my husband, my daughter, my lover, and my dignity. The whispers at work would follow me everywhere now. Everyone would know what I'd done. That evening, I drove to Ruth's house, hoping to see Amelia, but the lights were off and no one answered the door. I tried calling Owen, but he didn't pick up. I was effectively cut off from my own family. I ended up at a hotel, staring at the divorce papers and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. Owen was seeking full custody of Amelia, citing my unstable behavior and prioritization of extramarital relationships over parental duties. He had documentation of every lie I'd told, every excuse I'd made, every time I'd chosen Marco over my family. The worst part was that it was all true. 2 months later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce decree. Owen had gotten everything: the house, primary custody of Amelia, most of our assets. I was left with my job, my car, and a small apartment across town. Your ex-husband was very thorough, my lawyer said as I initialed each page. He had an airtight case. I nodded numbly. Owen had been thorough, methodical, strategic, all the qualities I'd found boring in a husband, but devastating in an opponent. As I left the law office, my phone buzzed with a notification from social media. Someone had tagged me in a photo, and when I opened it, my heart stopped. It was Owen, looking happier than I'd seen him in years, standing next to a beautiful woman I didn't recognize. They were both wearing formal clothes, and she was holding a bouquet of flowers. The caption read, "Congratulations to the happy couple." In the comments, I saw messages from all our old friends, people who'd cut me off after the divorce became public. Ruth had written, "Welcome to the family, Sarah. Owen deserves all the happiness in the world." And there, in one of the photos, was my daughter Amelia, beaming as she stood between Owen and his new fiancé, looking like she'd found the family stability I'd destroyed. Owen had moved on. He'd found someone who appreciated what he had to offer, someone who didn't need grand gestures and constant validation to be happy, someone who chose him every day instead of looking for something better. I stared at that photo for a long time, remembering the man who'd proposed to me at Marcello's, who'd saved for 6 months for a ring I'd rejected as not good enough, who'd planned romantic weekends and brought me flowers and tried desperately to be the husband he thought I wanted. I'd thrown it all away for a man who'd disappeared the moment things got difficult. I'd traded a faithful husband and a stable home for excitement that lasted exactly as long as it was convenient. Now, Owen was engaged to someone else, Amelia had a new mother figure, and I was alone in a studio apartment, scrolling through photos of the life I'd chosen to leave behind. The worst part wasn't the loneliness or the financial struggle, or even the loss of my daughter. The worst part was the knowledge that I'd done it all to myself. Every choice, every lie, every moment I'd chosen Marco over my family. It had all led here, to this empty apartment and this empty life. I'd wanted passion and excitement and romance. Instead, I'd gotten exactly what I deserved.